In this video, I'm going to show you how to perform some Boolean operations. These are operations that are performed on logical vectors. So I'm going to need to create two logical vectors for us. The first one's going to consist of two trues and then two falses. And then the second one's going to consist of the same thing, but they're going to be in a different order. And I'll type them in just with T's and F's. Save myself the trouble there. So those are the two vectors that I created. First one's two trues, and then two true false, and then two falses. The second one's a true false, a true false. Now the operations we're going to have here, there's going to be three kinds. There's going to be a not, an and an or. The not's simple enough. The not just changes trues into false and false into true. So the way you can use it is you just type in the exclamation mark and then whatever vector you want to not have, I guess you could say. And so you'll get something like this. So I did not x, and if you notice over here, my x is true, true, false, false, and this right here is false, false, true, true. It switched everything around. So whatever was true became false, and whatever was false became true. So that's the not operator. Now there's going to be an and operator. The and operator checks to see if both elements that it's looking at are true. Right? And there's two types of this. There's a vectorized version and there's a scalar version. By scalar, I mean it's just going to look at the very first elements of any vectors you give it. And the way this one looks is it's a double ampersand and a y. And so it's just going to look at the very first element of both. And if they're both true, it's going to give me back true. In this case, that's what's happening here. Both elements are true, so I got a true back. Now the vectorized version, the one that goes through pairs of elements and compares them, is just a single ampersand. And so I can do x and y, and now I get four things back. And if you look at this, I get one true at the beginning and then falses. Well, if I look at my two vectors, the only place I get two trues is in the first spot. Every place else, I get only one true, or I don't get any trues at all. So I've got the not operator, and I've got these two kinds of and operators. Now the third kind of Boolean operation I'm going to show you is the or operator. The or operator is going to look to see if at least one of the elements is true. Right? The way you use that is kind of like the and. Two versions. There's a scalar, and I'm going to show you the scalar first. All this is doing is looking at the very first element of the vectors that you input there, and it's seeing if at least one of them is true. In our case, the very first element of both of them is true, so I get back a true. But there is another version of this, which is the vectorized version. This is going to go through both these vectors, element by corresponding element, I should say, and see if at least one of those elements is true. In this case, that's actually true for the first three of them, and it's false for the last, because I've got both true here. At least one of these guys is true in the second spot. At least one of these guys is true in the third spot. And in the last spot, nobody's true at all. So that's how I can do some Boolean operations on logical vectors.